Take you around Dog Nation in 90 seconds. This is DN90. Hello, everybody. I'm Brandon Adams, and it's always a little bit dangerous when I make any kind of reference to hip-hop culture. That's a kind of music that I don't know a ton about, but I'm going to try to do that right now nonetheless. There's an artist, I think it's pronounced Plies. If I'm wrong, y'all don't brutalize me too bad in the comment section. But nonetheless, this particular artist had something to say the other day about, for whatever reason, about football spring practice. Let me show you the tweet from the guy I'm going to call Plies. He says, "Athletes, if you don't like spring ball, you should just find something else to do, because football ain't for you." Now, I mention all of this because former Georgia running back Keith Marshall had what I thought was a very appropriate response and maybe a little extra insight into what really happens behind the scenes when it comes to spring practice, an event that for the most part fans kind of glorify and treat as something really fun. For the players themselves, maybe that's not quite the case. What Marshall says in response to the initial tweet is, "Big homie, nobody likes spring ball, it's just part of it. If someone says otherwise, they're lying." I think Marshall's response on that's pretty great. And it actually kind of brings to mind something else another former football player said this week on Dog Nation Daily. Former SEC All-American Mike Johnson, who played at Alabama, kind of gave us a little bit of a behind-the-scenes insight on what's really happening behind closed doors for his program in the Crimson Tide and presumably for Georgia, who's going through these kinds of rigors right now. Here's what Johnson had to say.
There was 15 spring practices before my senior year. I bet I got in 10 fights. I bet I got in 10 fisticuffs leading out through that spring practice. I mean, it is a competition in every sense of the word, not just for your position, but ones versus ones. We had a ton on the line in terms of just bragging rights. You'd get knocked in the dirt, and you'd feel your pride on the line, or you'd knock somebody else in the dirt, and their pride was on the line. And it was time to go at it. And at the end of the day, you hugged and you made up, but there was no secret that you had to really stake your claim to that starting role, and you had to stake your claim to that dominance.
Fisticuffs and getting knocked in the dirt, competition, maybe all those things are why Keith Marshall said that, listen, football players don't necessarily love spring practice. It's just something you've got to do. But in the case of the Georgia Bulldogs, who are going through these spring practices right now, that's a process that may head Georgia down a path that could ultimately lead to a championship. And eventually the prize may have been worth all the effort. For more on Georgia spring practices, make sure you check out DogNation.com. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you back here again on Monday for another episode of DN90.